Hello, and welcome to the session on conquering hybrid and multi-cloud. Both terms crop up time and again as we're discussing the infrastructures that are going to help us become the data-driven organizations we're all aspiring to be, so that we can gain more insight from the data we have at scale to serve our customers, citizens, employees, and partners better, faster, cheaper. We often speak about hybrid and multi-cloud in the future tense, but that future is already here. In this session, I'll show you how you can tame, how you can conquer cloud in any shape or form, hybrid or multi, and how you can do it the right way to meet your goals and objectives of more insight. My name is Wim Stoop, and I'm CLOUDERA's Director of Product Marketing for SDX. I'll go into exactly what SDX is in a while. And although there is no live Q&A after the session, you can reach out to me via Twitter or email to continue the conversation. I'll also introduce our Israeli team at the end. So let's get started. What are the challenges we all face right now relating to hybrid and multi-cloud? Well, first of all, data is growing tremendously, still. So you may think, haven't we had this conversation before? Absolutely. We've spoken about this many times, but just as often as an analyst or statistician gives their prediction on growth, so does it need to be revised upwards. Data grows exponentially at a compound annual growth rate of 26%, predicted to reach 149 zettabytes in 2024. But look at where we are today with video conferences and this presentation, in case in point. The rollout of 5G all over the place. It all generates more and more data, different data, unstructured data. It's whipping up into a storm. Companies need to be able to leverage all that data to figure out how to have better, more virtual relationships with their customers, their employees, and their partners. But the problem is that data is literally all over the place. For many reasons, organizations end up with a host of places where they manage it. And that's the problem. How do you manage something that is in different systems and on different infrastructures, each with its own way of doing things? There is no single framework. It means there's a lot of manual effort going on. And if something goes wrong, the impact is significant, both inside as well as outside the organization. And Gartner predicted that this day was going to come. Hybrid and multi-cloud are very hard to tune. They're tricky to control in costs and even harder to integrate. Enterprise IT is trying to keep a degree of control, but they can't meet the business needs fast enough. Yet we're all driving towards hybrid. And just to put a definition in, hybrid cloud is a cloud computing environment that uses a mix of on-premises and private cloud and third-party public cloud services with orchestration between the two platforms. By allowing workloads to move between private and public clouds, as computing needs and costs change, hybrid cloud gives businesses greater flexibility and more data deployment options. So 58% of organizations already recognize as both strategic and practical. But when talking about data and analytics platforms, it's actually 85%. Other analysts, again, they give a glimpse at what the ideal ratio, the ideal mix of hybrid cloud should be. So IDC says it should be 32% public cloud, 40% private, and 29% bare metal. It's all well and good, but there are still issues to be resolved, right? So you want to be a data-driven company? All right, well, that means making all your data, both new and existing, available to all users. Oh, and to do it in a safe and compliant manner as well. But how do you do that across hybrid and multi-cloud? How do you ensure something like consistent security? How do you govern data as it moves between environments? Well, IT frantically tries to control what they can, and they're very rigid to change. And that results in those typical 3 to 6 months projects when end users ask for new data and analytics. IT goes off, does their thing, and after the period of time, typically too long, they come back and present the new data, present the new analytics, and the business need has already passed. So those end users are not exactly sitting on their hands either. They work around the limitations IT imposes on them to get their work done. They don't want to cause problems or issues. They don't want to be bad actors, but they simply resort to going it alone, and that's shadow IT. And aside from all the security risks this poses, and that we're all very well aware, it also needs to be paid for. So Gartner estimates that 40% of IT budgets go up on shadow IT. And that all contributes to making it harder to achieve and maintain compliance. Data privacy and industry regulation is tightening. The impact of getting it wrong is large. There's punitive fines on the one hand, but also the loss of reputation outside your organization. And even if we wouldn't have shadow IT to contend with, because we have data all over the place, getting an overview of that data, how it is governed, and whether the right people can or cannot see it, and then proving that across a heterogeneous landscape, that's a Herculean effort. For financial services firms, the annual cost to achieve and maintain compliance is around $31 million. Now, regulation has its cost, obviously. Granted, financial services is perhaps the most heavily regulated industry. But even if I would look at something like media, it's still $8 million per year. It's a shocking amount of money. And that brings me to the crux of becoming that data-driven organization, of getting value from the ever-growing data volume to do at scale and at speed. It sometimes feels like mission impossible. How do you safely and securely get all your data in the hands of those that need it, those that get value and insight from it, that deploy the use cases, the end users? How do you? And to accomplish that mission, there are various aspects we need for success. And first of all, and this is really the crux of becoming a data-driven organization, it's about bringing machine learning and artificial intelligence to production at scale. And it doesn't mean we're all going to build self-driving cars, robots. Those are the things that grab the headlines, absolutely. It's more often about the very mundane and the very boring analytics we all do day after day. And right now, in most organizations, that is what's very human intensive. We use descriptive and diagnostic analytics. They're very backward looking, and they depend on us as individuals to make the right decisions based on the data and the insights that we see. But that's exactly where machine learning can help. Models can help us move away from looking at the past because they'll be able to start predicting the future, what will happen. So we're already one step ahead. As individuals, as humans, we can anticipate what needs to be changed. Even more sophisticated artificial intelligence can go one step further. Rather than just predicting it and stopping there, it prescribes what we should do to prevent the negative consequences. It already takes a degree of decision-making away from us. One step further still, we have intelligence that simply eliminates our involvements and goes straight to the action. It predicts what's going to happen, it prescribes what we need to do, and it actually does it for us. So we can eliminate that human element so we can make more decisions, make them faster, more consistently. But machine learning alone, in isolation, that's not enough. There's an awful lot that needs to happen before I even get to machine learning, before I can hand my data to data scientists. I need to be able to ingest my data, and more 5G, that's coming in real-time and streaming fashion. I need to then enrich that data, use data engineering to do it, to transform it, to bring it into the format that I need. Maybe I need to create dashboards using a traditional data warehouse, or I'd like to craft an operational dashboard. Ultimately, I'd like to drive my data to the data scientists, give it in their hands, so they can use their frameworks, they can use their tools in order to train, to develop their models. And those models get then deployed back out either inside my organization, to my reporting, or back out to the edge. This is not a single streamlined left to right process, if you will. This is a continuous to and fro. It's very, very fluid. But what's important is that I have consistency between every single one of these steps. Consistent metadata, consistent security, consistent encryption, consistent control, consistent governance, and to be able to do that on any infrastructure. And together, those characteristics define what we call an enterprise data cloud. A platform that works across all clouds and data centers, all infrastructures, that has the complete range of analytics for the data lifecycle, all the way from ingestion to data science, that applies consistent security and governance. And finally, a platform that's open for integration and also based on open standards. That is an enterprise data cloud. And you need all four of these characteristics for success. It's not enough to have a couple, you need all four. But to do that, to meet those end user needs of being able to just go and find that data so they can get the insights, to not have to choose between a system that is very secure or very usable, but can't have both, to be able to do that across hybrid cloud, you need something special. You need something that's called context. Looking at the evolution of big data platforms, previously, everything was one big monocluster, but that turned out to be very hard to scale. Compute and storage are tightly coupled. Cloud, of course, was supposed to solve those challenges of flexibility and agility. So conventional wisdom said that if I start from a basic on-premise monocluster big data architecture and I evolve that by pulling apart compute and storage, I've delivered a big data cloud optimized equivalent, a cloud-based cluster architecture. But then something's missing. What's missing is context. All the other bits that are not compute and not storage. What about metadata, security, and governance? Where will they go when I pull this apart? Because without that context, I can only handle very simple use cases. I can deal with single tenants, single stage pipelines, non-sensitive data, non-regulated data. And of course, we all know that's not enough. So let's look at that context in a little bit more detail. It's all you need. It's all you need to answer the question, like, do I know my data and do I know it's used properly? There are security and metadata aspects, identities, structures, policies, and auditing. And then there are management services like tagging. They drive policies, replication. Whenever you move data, move it with context. Workloads, who can run them, and encryption. If you have all that, then you have discoverability of your data, you can trust your data, and you can prove you're compliant. You can tackle multi-tenant data access cases. You can deal with regulated data. You can implement multi-stage pipelines. And the crux is exactly that, defining this context once and then consistently applying it at scale. But even if you look at off-the-shelf traditional native cloud architectures, they provide compute and storage and nothing else. So cloud-native solutions like AWS's EMR, Azure's HD Insight, they all need bolt-on solutions. There's Glue, there's Purview. They're all afterthoughts to managing and persisting context. But there is another way. That's where CLOUDERA is different. We provide a cloud-native hybrid data architecture, an enterprise data cloud. So whatever the form factor, we provide a cloud-optimized architecture that separates compute, storage, and context. Context as an always-on service, always-on identity, schema, policy, and auditing. And that promotes security, discoverability, trust, compliance, and reusability. And that's exactly what CLOUDERA Data Platform, or CDP, allows you to do across deployments, across analytics, and along the complete data lifecycle. CLOUDERA Data Platform provides all of these enterprise data cloud capabilities. It's deployable to any cloud, provides the analytics for the complete data lifecycle, has consistent security and governance, and is open for integration as well as based on open standards and open source. CDP is the first enterprise data cloud. It provides the analytics that end users can launch directly or IT can tune to meet the needs of very specialized use cases. It's deployable to all infrastructures, any mix of public and private cloud. It's based on community open source and, very importantly, with a shared data experience that delivers consistent context. That is SDX, the shared data experience. And SDX delivers 5 key capabilities. First, it manages the complete range of metadata, not just the structural and technical metadata, but also how is data used, operational metadata, how do people work with data, interact with it, social metadata. There's business metadata, describe what the business context of a piece of information is. And with that, you can build trusted, reusable data assets. Security, with dynamic fine-grained access control applied consistently across all clouds and data centers to ensure the right people have access to the right data at the right time. Of course, fully transparent encryption across the full stack for data at rest and in motion. And insight and control into how data, metadata, and analytics are being used in the platform. And that makes sure you can always have the best performance, best economy, best resilience. And finally, governance, both to articulate how data should be handled and to also prove you're handling it in line with rules and regulations. And with that, you have everything in hand to achieve your mission. The mission to deliver all data safely and securely in the hands of the end users. So let me show you how in 3 straightforward steps. First, how do you quickly onboard new data? As we know, data volumes of any type are exploding, and quickly making new data available to end users lets you capitalize on the flood. Traditionally though, doing that for more data also means you need more time and more effort. Well, SDX shortens both and starts to establish consistent security and governance right from the beginning. First, it examines new data as it comes in through profiling, and that already gives you a very good indication of quality. It tells you about the data types you're dealing with, the cardinality, the nullity, the domain, and so on. But secondly, we go one step further. We look at what's in the data. What does it contain, and highlight anything that's sensitive? Maybe an IP address, a social security number. Out of the box, we recognize more than 100 types of sensitive data, but of course, you can add your own definitions as well. And then finally, we add characterizations and classifications to the data. We label the data, and that sets you up for the next step, attribute-based access control. Because with those classifications in place, you can start to deliver multi-tenant data access. I often think about it as looking at the same data, but with different glasses for different users or groups. The right people can see the right data in the right format. Some may see it in its natural form, others may see it masked, and others yet again can't see it at all. It prevents you from having to craft multiple views or come up with other creative workarounds. But what about derived data? Once my data comes into my platform, I enrich it, I derive it, I do other things with it. Data lineage across the platform is very important then. And we need to be able to track it, not just on one infrastructure, but across all infrastructures. We can make sure that you can track data wherever it goes. And then the critical aspect is that classification. Classifications, and with that, access control, they move with the data as it's moving across and along the data lineage. And that means you can now safely and securely open up more of your data to more of your users. Regardless of how data moves through the lifecycle, your access rules continue to apply, even as data moves between deployments. You've achieved consistency across all analytics, across all deployments, across hybrid and multi-cloud, and fully audited. You've accomplished your mission. In fact, you've created a degree of flexibility you previously never had. you can now make sure you always have the best possible deployment. As business needs change, and they do change now faster than ever, that definition of best changes with it. It can swing between best as most economical, most performant, or most resilient, or anything else that is important. So if you could move your analytics, your data, and your resources virtually at will to always have the best fit for your business, what would that do? What would it do for being able to deploy more use cases, for getting value from data faster, to make better data-driven decisions? And there's a bonus to be had from establishing consistent security and governance. Good governance and consistent security both have a tremendous side effect. They lead to compliance, whether for industry regulation or data privacy. It becomes a side effect, and it prevents you from having to tackle every compliance project as a new one. It prevents financial penalties and increases trust both inside as well as outside your organization. And consistent data context also ensures CDP can deliver some very unique capabilities. I already hinted at this intelligent deployment. Insight into metadata and how workloads perform allows us to make recommendations on how they can be deployed or perform better. How suitable is a workload, for example, to deploy to public cloud? Or is there a better way to write a query or deploy a workload so it actually has improved performance? We have the insight into how your operations work, and therefore we can make those recommendations. And this is really taking advantage of hybrid cloud, we can burst to cloud. We can supplement the resources, the compute and storage that you have in your data center with those that are in public cloud, as and when you need them, only for a few hours or a few days. But importantly, without breaking data context, with consistent security and governance. As the data moves, your context always moves with it. And we've done it before. Cloudera has thousands of customers who all use our platform to become the data-driven companies they always wanted to be. We've allowed them to turn data into insight for better and faster decisions, to help them grow the business, connect it, or protect it. Telcos, for example, they use the complete data lifecycle to create models that identify those customers that are likely to churn to another provider. And what should they do to keep them? Are they the right customers to keep? We enable predictive maintenance for a range of equipment and vehicle manufacturers, all the way from helicopters to mining equipment. And we help organizations reduce that cost of regulatory compliance. On our website, you can read all their stories or zoom in on your specific industry, whether that's telco, banking, consumer credit, the list is long. One thing that makes all of them equal is their need to turn data into insight. And one thing they all have in common is they did so using Cloudera. So let's bring things to a close. Conquering hybrid and multi-cloud is within everyone's reach and will allow you to take advantage of the flood of data that's coming down. Start with an enterprise data cloud that lets you deploy to all clouds and data centers, that provides the analytics for the data lifecycle so you can drive machine learning and artificial intelligence to production at scale. Your enterprise data cloud must also enable that consistent data context, the single layer where metadata, security, and governance come together so that it can be consistently applied anywhere. One definition applied everywhere. Because then you can safely and securely get all your data in the hands of those that need it, the end users, to deploy more use cases, to deliver more insight. And that is the end of my presentation. And although I look forward to continuing the conversation with you, I'd also like to introduce those that look after your region. Get in touch with Leo or Michael directly if you'd like to discuss anything you've heard today, or perhaps anything you've not heard today. They're supported by Shlomi and Guy, and they really look forward to hearing from you. With that, thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your conference. Bye-bye now.